Hello, and welcome to The Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
We're rolling.
Here we go.
Cool.
So, Scott,
Yes.
tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Scott, as you know.
You're the lead singer of a band.
Yeah, Mucho Disaster. What else did you want to know?
Every what makes you tick? Who are you?
I hate to answer that.
Well, maybe we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
tell us about Mucho Disaster. How did it start? What is its spirit?
It started with me and my brother. When I started writing songs, when I was 13. I'm 4 years older than Jay, and then I would always just run all my songs. I would run all my ideas by Jay, and then he would give me feedback from when he was 9 years old. And then so when I was about 16, he was about 12, maybe 15, 11, somewhere around there. I taught him to play guitar so that we could start to piece songs together, actual things, and we did different parts and stuff like that, and complemented each other. So we started just kind of building it like that. And the vision, I never really I've had all kinds of different dreams about it and hopes about it, and then sometimes it's just more off to the side. Throughout my life, it kind of floated around in different capacities. And then I guess we lived in a house together in St. Catharines when I was going to Brock. He was working in St. Catharines, and his girlfriend, then now wife, was going to Brock as well. And we basically started playing a lot more songs. Now we were living together as young adults, and we started to kind of write all these tunes and really advance. And some of the old ones that we wrote when we were kids are still around and stuff like that. And then we started to come up with, and it really started to advance a little bit further. And we started to do live shows, little bars, little coffee shops, small stuff. And then we never really let it go. And then I moved out to Scarborough. I was in Toronto for a while, and I was doing a solo thing, and I was doing some shows, just me. And I joined a handful of different bands, bounced around stuff that didn't work out, little projects. Tried to always fuse my songs in here. Always kept Jay around, and always told him we're gonna I think I might have a pretty good band for us. My plan was always take it over, and that's the wrong attitude. And I think that's why it never worked out. And eventually, it was just kind of okay, we need to start this ourselves. And one of my best buds, I also went to Humber College for acting. A guy I met there, Al, who works in the movies now. He's this amazing musician, phenomenal blues guitar player. He came out, and we were all just hanging out, me, him, and Jay, and we wrote this song just for fun, just for a jam. We would do that all the time. But this one particular song we wrote, we were like, this is really awesome. I want to record it. I want to make something of it. And we're like, okay, what do we call it? I think it's called Mucho Disaster. We're like, okay, that's sweet. So we laid down the one track, and while we were doing that, we were jamming a lot and playing around with ideas, and we started to get some more ideas that we liked, and we wrote this song, Switch It Up, and Evolution, and started to kind of write more songs. We're like, I guess we have to record an album now, because we loved the way Mucho sounded for just a recorded in a basement in Hamilton type thing. So we did a whole album mainly down there, did some drums in a studio in Wasaga. We started to get more serious about it, and we did it over about 3 years until all of a sudden we had this album that I feel pretty happy about. Sometimes when I listen back, it sounds amateurish in some ways, just because the recording quality wasn't there. But out of necessity, a lot of the time was born a lot of good ideas, just interesting ideas. We hit actual pots and pans and stuff like that kind of happens on the project. So it sounds kind of really interesting to me, maybe interesting to some other people if they listen to it, whatever. I think some parts are undeniably catchy. And so we thought we had something pretty good there. And then I basically, after we dropped it in June 2019, just released it just virtually on the streaming platforms. Didn't really get any play, not any interest. We didn't promote it, nothing like that. But then I went on a little acoustic tour through Quebec and Eastern Ontario and did a whole bunch of shows in Montreal and Mont Tremblant, and all over the place. And basically what had happened was we started to get a little bit of traction on it, whatever, and I was coming up with all these ideas. Now all of a sudden I found myself fully immersed in the project, and I was kind of phasing out all my other little things. And when I got back, I basically was working as little as possible. I was living in a van at the end of my brother's property, and we were recording songs in a shed and just trying to do this next thing, the next phase of it. And we called that modern music. We ended up dropping that last year. And during the time that we were recording that, we brought in Shane. We brought in this drummer, Dilly, who's not really drumming with us anymore, unfortunately. And we started to do all these live shows as the full band, and it really started to spark, and people really seemed to take to it enough, at least from my perspective, that I felt really fueled, and I felt like I wanted to, like, I was full in on this thing now. And then we basically brought Danny in after, like, when COVID happened. We had all these shows lined up. I had him in mind because I've known him for years, and I know he's a fantastic musician. And then I basically wanted to advance the project even further, add what he'll bring to the table, more levels, more ideas, and just more intricate kind of thoughts. And then COVID happened. We were going to be in the Bout, the giant contest in Toronto at the Hideout, and we had a new music night. Bookie on the Edge used to do new music night at Horseshoe Tavern. We were going to do one of those nights, and we had all this stuff lined up, and like my schedule was packed, and I was just like thriving, and then it all got taken away. And sometimes I think like when God like puts you in like a dark spot, and like you kind of feel like you got everything taken away from you, but if you like trust in the long run, then like good things happen. And I think like now we're at a place where we're in this whole new creative zone, and there's all these possibilities, and we're just looking forward to making the next thing. So that's
I love that. And
story.
why don't you share, before we go into this, because we're going to be talking about music for this whole time pretty much, but why don't you go into your dance competition emceeing side, because that's the part that a lot of people in the music side know about you, I think.
I'm more known in the dance
Right.
world by far. I MC the Northern Stars dance competition, so that's like one of the big top 10 in Canada. And I also do the finals, the national finals as well, which is in Mont-Tremblant, where all the top things go at the end of the year in the summer. So we would do that as well. And basically it was a lot of fun. I've been doing it for 12 years. I grew up a competitive dancer, and then became, in my 20s, one of my side gigs was I used to do a lot of background dancing and much music videos and things like that. And I did some choreography for the French channel TFO. Used to have this art show where they would have performers do a live thing, and they would have also choreography in the back, so I used to do choreo for them. And always kept teaching all the way through it up until the whole situation. And I haven't been able to teach since. But yes, dance has always been just like a huge part of my life. Even when I used to play with Della Rose, this other band I played with for a few years, a band I really liked those guys, and we were playing a lot of really great shows together. I used to always like turn it into like a dance show in my mind. Like I wanted to be playing, because I wasn't lead singing, so I was just playing guitar on the side, and I just wanted to like groove and swing my hips and stuff and get into the funk,
So you said to me recently, which I loved, you said, "I'm not really a musician, I'm a philosopher." Why don't you speak to that?
I guess what I meant when I said that to you was that I like to just kind of, I think what I like about music is the like meaning behind it.
Yeah.
So I'm more into like, if I get to the core of it, what I really like is like the message, the feeling, and the emotion and stuff like that. And then that kind of comes out through music. So that's probably what I was alluding to.
Yeah, because I think of, when I think of you, I think of someone who loves art. Right, like you embody the just pure, unadulterated appreciation for the emotions that music can convey.
Thanks.
Right, and
you like art a lot too, so
yes,
I think that's why we click.
Exactly. And I've really appreciated being around you, because I find, and I think Zach could probably speak to this, but I find that so many musicians are not about the art anymore. They're about the fame, or they're about the feeling that they get from being an artist or being a musician, or the identity they get.
Right.
But like, that's not getting lost in the art.
No. I think there's definitely a commercialized sound right now. And also I think there's just a lot of bands out there that are just all doing the same thing. I don't really know why, but it's cyclical, because I think the late 80s were like this, where all the things started to get kind of like a lot of these like synthy kind of like whatever kind of generic sound. And of course they were destined for that 1991. The people were clamoring for, the taste makers were clamoring for something like Nirvana, something to come out of left field, be different, get back to rootsy. In that case, this time around, who knows what it'll be. But I do think we're also on the verge right now. People are kind of like, we need something that's gonna be different.
We need art again, not consumable products.
Right. Yeah. Because to your point, art is not something that that is ever like forced or whatever, right? Because then you lose the authenticity of it.
So I want you to go into that a little bit, your philosophy of rock and roll, because I really want to talk about that. But more importantly, your philosophy of what art is.
It's weird. I don't want to come across like an asshole because I'm like not accomplished. It's like, you guys want the 6 keys to success? Step 1, find your passion. Find your passion.
Oh, right. Find your passion. That's right. That's right.
Step 2 is find your notepad.
That's right.
Yes,
Step
yes.
2, get a notepad because you're going to want to write this down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I forget the question.
No, it's more just like, what is art to you?
Art is life.
Right.
Quite simply, and it's the beauty of life and everything like that, and it's everything that we are fighting for. Like, I think like a part of the problem right now today is that in the sake of convenience, we've lost a lot of personality just as a whole as society. So you have like look, I can like voice automate the lights in my house now. It's like, okay, but you couldn't flip the switch, or you don't like going over to a lamp and like doing it or whatever. Like, how much do you want to just sit there and just watch TV and have like robots bring you food and feed you and stuff, and you just lie there like a vegetable? Like, where does it end? You know what I mean?
Well, it doesn't seem to be ending. Like, now we just order whatever we want to our homes.
To our homes, we don't go out and about. Well, that's what they wanted. This is what they wanted. Now we're all isolated. Now it's everybody stay in your quadrants, stay in your little they want everyone in condos. They want us all in little boxes, like sardines, and we're all paying all these extra fees, and it's all owned by these buildings. You don't really own it, you know. And then
it's not like you can sell it and then
that'll be
somewhere.
that'll be full control for them. So that's where we're like, and they've made it, and like, look how convenient it is, and like all these things, but like we've lost like the niceties, and we've lost kind of the magic. Like Jay, actually, he moved out to a farm. I mean, you got to have him on the show.
We're definitely having him on the show.
But he has like, he doesn't have a cell phone. He just has a landline. Like, he went back and like.
Oh, I've dreamed of that.
It's awesome. I know. I've told people, and they're jealous.
That's why
people are like,
never
he's so free
in the chat.
That's free.
Oh, you're right. That is free. And well, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you love your brother probably more than anyone else in the world, other than your son and your girlfriend.
Right.
What?
Not just as much, though.
Yeah.
It's family is the most important people to me.
Yes, exactly. What is it about how he lives his life that so inspires you to live your life like you do?
Jay has always been this guy. Even in when he was like a little kid, he would like go out in his Batman suit. Like, he was always like. Not only did he dare to be different, he was always cool. Like, he pulled it off with this like natural, like, just kind of like, he doesn't think like the rest. And also, he's amazing at being just ahead of the trends, like a year and a half. He's always like actually quite
like
a bit
Bitcoin.
like more ahead of the trends than like even the people who are like a little bit ahead of them. Like Jay's like, oh, I did that 3 years ago. Like, check it out. Like, old pictures. Like, yeah, you had that style. He's like a time traveler.
Right. I love that. So he's basically the embodiment of cool.
Yeah, I
and
think
so when you say
so.
that word, what do you mean by it? Like, what does it mean to be cool? How can a person be cool?
Just without trying. That's the only way.
Yeah, exactly. It is something you just, it's an internal confidence, right?
Yeah, for me, for like when I like think of like myself, why I didn't want to define myself as anything, and we've discussed this before, but I think that we're all vessels, so different spirits can run through you. And it's like, oh, sometimes like I feel like I'm like a little bit of a different person than other times, you know. But that's like, you are still the same person, but you're kind of trying to flow with the natural wave, and then you're a vessel, you're in touch with the universe, and then the truth should kind of show its way out.
You and I have talked about this a fair bit. I want to talk about manifesting because that's something that I've been thinking a lot about, that I've been kind of engaging in as a process. I know Zach's been doing the same. What's your vision of manifesting, and how has that idea changed your life?
Ooh, this is like the biggest concept. So this is like an ongoing like breaking down of the mind and like what existence is and stuff like that. I think for me, it was like one day I had a realization that life is a projection only. Like, any of these walls here, they're fickle. Like, they're not, I mean, your eyes will deceive you. You know what I mean? Like, everything is subject to change. It's like, Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, is it dead or alive?
Is it dead or is it alive? All we're acting on is a series of probabilities all the time. So I'm just assuming that this building isn't going to collapse, and I feel pretty confident about that. But it could.
Right, but it could. Yep.
So any of these things can happen. I think what people do is they manifest through negative and positive kind of like thoughts. Like, eventually you do little things. There's both sides. I like the scientific kind of like breakdown for people who don't want to get like too spiritual about it. I think there are little subtle things that people do, and I mean, it's in 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene, he says, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky.
Yes.
And those people are that way for a reason. You're not just unlucky. You're bringing it on yourself. It's not a coincidence. And those people are just vacuums of energy, and they're black holes. But they manifest that. They could train their brain to get out of that loser mentality. Then they could go on to other things, and we've all been there. Like I speak from, I only can know this because of personal experience.
Yeah, we write what we know, right?
We've all been guilty of being a sloth at one point or another, and trying to, But when you feel that, I think that's like the worst emptiness you can feel, and I think that's when you want to start manifesting something better. So you start to put plans into action. And I don't mean, let's not tell them all of our secrets, because you had some really great points in this too. But we should write the book first, and then sell that for $49.99.
I agree. Well, Zach, why don't you speak to this a little bit, because you've been kind of going on this journey as well. And when we say manifest, people are immediately going to be like, "Oh, you guys are all into hokey," and you know what? Maybe we are a little bit, but the truth is, it's real. Like, it's utterly and 100% real that you can have a huge impact on reality itself purely in your mind.
There's a really easy psychological breakdown that you can look at that just like follows a pretty easy to follow train of thought, and it just makes sense.
Yeah.
For me, manifestation is, if I were to boil it down into one statement, it is you decide.
Ooh.
You get to decide, and so many people feel like they don't get to decide, and that comes down to, I think, a victim mentality. That comes down to blaming exterior factors for your own results. When you stop doing that and you realize you get to decide what you get out of the life that you have, that is, call it Zach Gerber's intro to manifestation.
There we go. I love it. Okay. I love it. Yeah. And I guess I'll say this. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I'll repeat it because not everyone listens to every episode. When I say manifestation, I'm talking about many things. But a great example is if there's an empty patch of earth and I decide to build a house there, and then I go through the steps of building a house, how is this not a miracle? How is it not the level of complexity that will be in that house? The electrical work, the drywalling, the painting, the roofing. That will all just happen because one day someone decided to put a house there. Your life could be a house.
I love the analogy.
And you could build it in the way you want. It is possible. Right? All you have to do is decide.
It's simple. It's actually really simple to decide.
Yeah. And
there's going to be roadblocks along the way.
Oh, of course. And those roadblocks are the way.
That's right.
Right? Like, getting through each of those roadblocks makes you more competent, which makes you more confident.
Oh, yeah. I thought we were going to say that at the same time.
Yeah. Here's a cool descript on roadblocks. And I'll do my best to describe it because no one's actually watching. People, if you can see a straight line on a page, and there's 3 points. There's the point on the left, there's the center, and then there's the point on the right. People think that you are in the center and failure is on one side and success. So let's say failure is on the left and success is on the right. That's wrong. You are at the beginning of the line. You're all the way over on the left-hand side. Failure's smack dab in the middle, and you got to go through that shit to get to the success.
Ooh, I like that. Yes.
Yes, it's
yes.
that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly what I want to talk a bit about writing music.
Okay.
And not what your process is, because that's a boring question. What does it feel like to write music?
Well, to explain that, I think we really need to discuss my process.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's go into the process.
No, I'm just kidding. So what was the question again?
No, just like,
I was planning that joke the whole time.
So what does it feel like to create music?
So that's like the most fun thing that you can do, I think, other than like sex, but sex is also tied into creation. So right, I think it's like the closer I think it gets you closer to God, which is why that 9 Inch Nails song is so awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
It's like sex.
It's creation.
Yeah, it's creation. In that way, there's
creation.
A parallel. Yeah. And that's your mind. When your mind is doing something and you feel like you're like making something, then that's when you feel like it's opening up and you're getting like light shining into you. You know what I mean? That's satisfaction.
And it's something completely different from science, wouldn't you say?
I guess science always just exists without us even knowing about it. So there's always a scientific breakdown for things, but I don't think science necessarily can quite explain things that are so phenomenal that are beyond our grasp of even like getting to the end of. And that's the point of them.
Yeah, yeah. When I watch you create, because for the listeners who don't know, I live with Dan, who's in the band, and that we're doing a lot of work in the basement all the time on music. So I get to be there in this creative environment. And I have to, I mean, Zach exists in the creative environment pretty much constantly. It is an entirely different way of looking at the world than most people. Most people, it's so much more vibrant and alive. And if I could like give one piece of advice to people, would be start creating, even if you're not good.
And I think comedians too.
Yes.
Comedians, they also sit back and take a look at the world, like try to like get a perspective of it and kind of dwell in that area. So like if you're like naturally like into like that kind of thing, like I don't know.
Writers,
I think
or
they
writers.
often become like anything like that. Yeah, but it's all creative, right?
Yeah,
It's all
you're
creating
built.
everything.
You're taking something from nothing,
And
0 to 1.
Shane is both outstanding musician
And an outstanding
and like a phenomenal like comedian. He's hilarious. I've seen him live at Yuck Yucks and different places a couple of times. And actually, the night I met Shane, he was. Want me to tell you the story?
Yeah,
Am I getting too
absolutely.
derailed?
No,
from what
this
you're
is
talking
great. This is how it works.
He basically I was at this bar in Augusta in Hamilton, and there's this British dude. He's not like the tallest guy, but he's super charming, and he was charming the pants off this hot bartender. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't even, I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit back.
And observe
Tonight
this.
is
I
his
gotta
night.
watch
He
this,
was
yeah.
glowing. Yeah. So I was like, okay, you don't want to be that guy who like tries to pipe in
No.
when someone else is vibing. Then it's just like, okay, like, let's just let this kid have his
His
day
day in
here.
the sun, yeah.
And he was awesome. And so I started talking to him, and he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, I'm a musician, blah, blah, blah. I just did a stand-up set here tonight. So obviously he just killed it with the crowd. So he was living off that crowd energy buzz. So, he was invincible. And I was like, this guy's awesome. Great performer. Went to see him perform. Me and Jay went and watched him. And then he was so funny. He was awesome. That we were just like, this guy has got like charisma, like all these things. He's smart, clever, and he's got like a little attitude where like he can be like kind of nice, but then all of a sudden like he comes in like that. So he's got this like wide range of feel. So we started making music with him, and originally we just brought him in to put the live act together. I just was excited to see what he brought because of his personality and because he's such like a unique individual. And he hasn't disappointed.
It also never harms to have a comedian around.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
It makes life more interesting.
Exactly. Well, we all are comedians.
True. Well, now that you've described Jay and Shane, maybe just describe Dan so that the listeners can get a picture of the whole band.
Danny. Okay, well, they call him Danny Ice Cold.
Yes.
That's his nickname.
With women all around.
There's always women around him. This guy is, he's handsome Dan, That's what I called him. We did a show in the summer.
That dude must have popped out of his mom jacked because he's just
He
always so
just looks
strong.
like a freaking
G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Like the dude is a specimen.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So originally met Danny a few years ago, both like downtown Hamilton guys. Found out he was a musician. We're on Twitter. He posted a video of him playing piano, and I was like, holy shit, this guy can play. Like not joking around,
No.
outstanding, like really tough. Like then he put like a classical piece on that he was working on. I'm like, Jesus. He's awesome. So then we like jammed a couple times and whatever. I rented out a room at his place for like a few months at one point in time when I was in between like a couple different places downtown. And we jammed a ton then. And we actually started writing a couple things. And I think that's pretty much what roped him into the band is then we kept coming back to some ideas and some stuff we had been working on. We were jamming. And then all of a sudden the band situation got a little bit fluid. And it was just kind of like, well, let's see what we can create. And then me, him, and Jay started doing stuff last summer. But Danny, the good thing about him is he's like awesome. You can rip on him and like he'll never phase him.
Never.
Not for a second. He'll just kind of be like, he'll shrug it off. He'll joke along with it. Like and then like he'll have like a clever line. Like, he's like smart, witty. He's awesome dude, and he gets art.
He gets
You want
art.
to talk about
He
someone who
loves art.
understands? Yeah, he appreciates the subtleties, and like he likes to dive deep into it. And I think that makes him probably why he's a great piano player.
Yeah. And also has a roofing company and a whole business that he does too. Like he's just one of the things, and I've noticed this with you and with him and with Shane, interesting people are doing a lot of different things. They're not just they're still focused on their long-term goal, and it's very specific, but it's even like with Ian and you with hunting, and to have an interesting life, you have to do interesting things. Right? And people act like that's hard. It's not hard. Just go out and do.
That's just your manifestation point again and again. It's like
just decide.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people accept, like in the current situation, like, oh, we have to stay at home. I guess we'll all do Zoom calls with our grandmas. I don't get it.
No.
I can't do that. Like, not that I'm gonna see my grandma next week, so
Right.
don't get that twisted. But I'm gonna go see her.
Right. You're
You
not
know
going
what I
to
mean?
Zoom it.
No.
No.
Come on.
Well, on that topic, how do you feel about the lockdowns?
Well, I think that's pretty apparent. I think they're stupid, and I would just end them tomorrow and be like, "There, we're good."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just everybody go back to your lives, and then just get rid of the, fear propaganda, and we'll move on.
Well, why do you think people are so afraid?
Because they're fucking stupid.
Yes. Yes.
Are you gonna make me say it? Because they're fucking stupid.
I think it's also that no one is out there saying the truth.
Yeah, they're afraid. They're afraid to say the truth.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Is that nobody wants to be the one to step outside the line. It's the emperor's new clothes, time and time again. That's humanity. Is nobody wants to be the one. It's like that Jerry Seinfeld bit where he says the number one fear in America is public speaking.
Like more than death.
Number two is death. So for the average person, if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy.
Yeah.
Which is so whack. Is that an actual statistic?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been
Well,
studies
according
on
to Jerry
it. Well,
Seinfeld.
yes. So I mean,
So
But-
take it with a grain of salt. But
take it with a grain of salt, but I bet he saw that thing, wrote the bit, would be my guess,
yeah.
rather than fabricate it out of nowhere.
yeah. Well, and here's the interesting part about that, right? What does that say about people? Why are they so afraid of it? I think they're so afraid of it because they're afraid. At least this is my analysis of it. They're afraid that everyone's going to find out who they actually are because they know and they think and they don't like who they are.
Whoa.
Yeah. I also think it's tribal. I think it's very primal, not wanting to step out of the narrative of your tribe to fit in, to be secure. It's a security thing for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really
So
good
many
point.
people think that life is a giant who's the best at fitting in contest.
That's true. That's true.
I'm fitting in even harder than you.
right.
I have this newest thing, this newest
That
phone.
everyone wants, though.
phone.
That everyone wants.
I lined up at night to get a phone. Like consumer culture is like at this like level right now where it's embarrassing.
That is an interesting take on it that I hadn't really thought about. People line up outside of stores to get a new phone.
Yeah. Why?
It would
Because
be-
it's the
it would be-
newest.
It would be one thing. Well, it's not because they need a new phone.
No, status symbol.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's a stupid status symbol. Like, could there
It's
be a
rid-
stupider?
No. I guess that's like the new, like, I guess back in the day you would have like your gold and your jewels and like whatever.
Right.
Now it's like you have your phone. It's like a sign of, I guess, like wealth. Like you spent on it, so you want to show it off. They put the money into it. So I mean, happiness is relative. So I guess like right now we're being a little judgmental.
That's
but
true,
like,
that's true.
But because we see it, we don't see it that way. So it does look stupid. But I guess if they are happy and like they live in that world, and like we are the monsters who come in and take them away from their little shelter.
Oh,
You know what I
right,
mean? So
right,
you got to keep that
true.
in mind. Like, you know,
We don't want to be the monsters.
we don't want to be the monsters. That's why like tact is so important. That's why you have to be like keep their feelings in mind as much as like you know they're wrong on your core kind of understanding of reality.
I like that. So rock and roll. What is rock and roll?
I have a manifesto.
Yeah, on your Twitter. So
Yeah.
tell us everyone your Twitter handle so we can.
Just Mucho Disaster. I'm Mucho Disaster. I'm mostly just liking Leaf tweets lately and tweeting and like retweeting anti-lockdown stuff that I come across and retweeting David.
Yes, true.
Basically, all I do.
But on there, you've got you've thought through this. You're not just, rock and roll. You're like, no, why is rock and roll so important? And you've introduced me to this concept. I've always been obsessed with music. Zach knows we used to listen to songs when I was 3. I've just been listening to music for my whole life. I'm
not sure I was alive when you were 3.
Okay, well, when you were 3.
Fact check.
But you introduced me to this idea of rock and roll that I'd kind of known on the periphery, and now I'm seeing from the inside. And it's this idea of radical freedom, right? And
I've never worded it that way.
yes, no, I know you haven't, but I'm just trying to explore this idea. But
Okay.
but the idea is the freedom comes from within. Right? You can't be rock and roll if you're worried what other people think of you.
Totally true. Basically, when we started talking about rock and roll, this is when we were making Mucho once. So I mentioned earlier that we worked on it over the course of a few years. But towards the end, during that final year, and specifically the final 6 months, Al was living in Vancouver. He was doing a movie out there. But then he was flying and staying at my place downtown Hamilton for 2 weeks at a time to work on the album in my basement.
Yes,
and then he would fly back. That was rock and roll. And he was sleeping on a baby mattress that I had lying on the floor. That was it. And
Wow.
I was teaching one dance class a week. So I'm once a week for an hour, I'd go out,
Right.
be gone for a couple hours, and he would be editing stuff and whatever. And other than that, I was bartending a couple nights a week. So I'd be okay, I'm gonna be gone tonight for 6 hours, and then whatever.
To edit or whatever.
And so that's his time to sort through what we were working on and continue writing new stuff and whatever. Or just maybe relax at that point,
And you're probably super happy in that time.
I was. But during this time, we also started writing down all this stuff. We started saying that is rock and roll, or what rock and roll is this. And then we ended up making kind of a philosophy kind of manifesto with the opening line would be rock and roll is life. And then from there, it's just kind of how it's balanced, it's karma, it's the gateway between the material world and the spiritual world, and it's everything. But it's always balancing itself out, and that's just one part of it. There's a whole thing, but basically, it's every facet of life that stays as true to nature as possible.
And why do you think that is? Why specifically rock and roll?
Because everybody has selfish kind of desires and ambitions, and they want to stray away from true nature, and they want to, be a god of sorts. But if you always humble yourself and you come back and you come back to that place, that's rock and roll. Not getting too far on that side.
It's not you. It's a thing apart from yourself.
And that's what, it says in the manifesto. We are but vessels. I am just an observer on the journey of rock and roll, because what my aim would be to always just kind of be letting spirits flow through me and whatever, and then it's never a concrete me, but I show up sometimes, and it's just a matter of always trying to keep that balance. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you fuck up, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, well, sometimes I guess you lose your connection to this idea, right? And you just become obsessed with some pathetic, meaningless thing that becomes worry and anxiety.
You take your eyes off the prize.
Yeah. What is the prize in your mind?
Happiness, which only comes by way of freedom.
Right.
And
Yes.
that's just, I think all of us, I think man in general just wants to be free. We want to be as free as we can. I think that's why people also search for within the. So I like to not play the game. I like to try to think of myself as more. I would rather be a woodsman than be immersed in politics.
Right. Yes.
So that would be, I would just want to not play the game. But I think the reason why people play the game so hard and try to move up in it is because then you can create more freedom. But because power equals more freedom, less restrictions on you, you're protected and whatever the case. But I think there's always a counterbalance to that. That power is also going to come with this weight on this other side where things can topple.
Responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a metaphor I read about that once. of a businessman who was on, this is a parable, it's not a real story, but a businessman who was on a vacation somewhere in the Caribbean, and he met this Caribbean fisherman who was really, really good at fishing. And the businessman said, you really should, you should get a couple boats together and then get a crew together and then have a bunch of people fishing for you. And then after that, you could scale the business and make it bigger and bigger. And then you could open up operations in America where there's more opportunity, and you could be, you could own a company and you could make all of this money and be really, really successful. And then you would be free. And he said, but I am already free because I am fishing.
Yes.
Right. Perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like they try to tell you. I mean, that song "Working Class Hero" by John Lennon is like perfect for
Love
this.
that song.
Yeah.
It's perfect for this.
It's something to be.
Yeah.
A working class hero.
They
is
tell
something to
you
be.
what it takes to be happy, and that's to keep you as average as possible. There's geniuses and really intelligent people who are stamp jockeys for the bank, approving loans. Yeah, and these are like, because it's like, oh, well, that's a good paying job. So smart people get sucked into the system and they go up and they do amazingly well so that it can be a big shot at the bank. And it's like, what kind of, do you get a lot of fulfillment from that? Well, you fit really well into society because you're doing really well. You have a lot of freedoms because you have a lot of money. You have the big house.
But you're not free at all.
But it's like Fight Club, the things that you own you, right?
Yes. I love that line.
So true.
I mean, and I think,
but how do you escape it?
well, and that's the question, right? And maybe there isn't a full-on answer to how do you fully escape it. Maybe you can't fully escape it, but what I've discovered in this time of living with Dan and being involved with your band is you can escape it. And I want everyone listening to understand that. You don't have to live a mediocre life. Nobody does.
That's true. I like how this whole podcast is a giant motivational speech. Like, this is an uplifting one. Yeah. If you need a kick in the pants, this is the podcast for you. Okay.
No, but like it honestly is interesting to think about how. Well, we just had a guest on who was talking about how he would work at his 9 to 5 and come home and watch Netflix, and he was getting fat and he was miserable, and he changed his life. Right? He found his own freedom, and it's not as hard as people think. Like, you've lived a life of very much freedom. Like, I love the idea that you were just living in your van for a while and that didn't bother you. I'm sure it was some of the best times you ever had.
It was. And also I was at that time just getting the sense I was like on to like good things because I think I was enjoying what I was doing. So yeah, I think it's funny because my years teaching dance, a lot of my clients were in their 50s. It's like couples who like, oh, like the kids are out of the house. Now we have spare time.
Maybe we'll go learn to dance.
Let's take some ballroom dancing lessons. It's a good one. And so they come out and you get to know these people because you're working one-on-one private lessons with them. You see them an hour a week. And over the course of 6 months a year, I had the same clients and stuff. And a lot of them said the same things I found, which was basically that they wish that they did this when they were 25. Right. But at that time, they were just saving everything and, paying into their RSPs and then saving up for the kids' college fund and like everything else. And then it was just like, oh, so now they're like living their lives in their 50s and like, oh, if we did this when we were young, like imagine how much fun we would have had. You know what I mean? Had a lifetime of it.
Yeah, there's very few things that I've done that I regret, but there are many things that I haven't done that I regret. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
You can like go do the things that you want to do. You get one crack at it,
Yeah.
You get one life, it's yours. You have to live it.
Yeah.
For me, I couldn't agree more because I think the real limitation is fear. This is why COVID is such a big deal right now. This is why because people are terrified because they haven't accepted that they're going to die.
Fear is the hand that pulls your strings.
Yeah. And so I think of the couple, right? This couple that you're talking to, that you're teaching to dance, and they're having so much fun. They're like, I wish I'd done that before. But they were so afraid of their financial security and making sure everything was secure and safe that they couldn't even go to dance lessons. And if you think about it, how much easier would it have been if they just done that and said, we'll figure it out. That's how I live my life. We'll figure it out.
Right.
The decide moment, the moment where you decide is then the answer to, okay, when you say I'm going to do this, it's going to be like, well, how are you going to do it? We'll figure it out.
You got to dive in.
Yeah. You got to take the step. You got to jump off the cliff.
And then just trust that it'll sort itself out because you're going to stick to it.
There's a great line, I forget who it's from, but it says, act, and the universe will align itself to your will.
Yeah, and people, I read those things for years, and you see all the slogans,
and you're like, oh, whatever.
Motivational things on Instagram. I always believe them. I'm like, I think this is true. I thought there was something to it, and then I think the more you start to kind of move along, and the more you start to feel good about what you're doing, the more you just kind of realize, oh, it's totally true.
Right,
it's totally true.
It's all true, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I think, at least for me, when I would see those things, I wasn't like you, where I'm like, this is true. I was like, oh, these people, they're just all full of this, optimism and happy words and empty phrases, but they're not empty. They're not empty at all.
Except for live, laugh, and love.
Oh yeah,
that one's empty.
That one's empty. If you see that on a pillow, don't buy that pillow.
No. I mean, what does it even mean? These are all things we're going to do: live, laugh, and love.
Too obvious, guys.
This has been a motivational podcast.
I guess it is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This one.
Also,
sell this tape to for motivational
right,
speeches.
Yeah, why not?
Did you show up with a coffee and a beer?
I did.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is
very
the most
rock and roll.
That is the most stylish anyone has shown up to a podcast.
It's true. And the listeners can't see, but he's also got sick pants on.
Plaid pants. Yeah.
So where do you see this going? What do you want to what do you want to experience? What are some of the cool things you hope to observe in the universe?
Some cool things I hope to observe in the universe. Well, more on a base level, more freedom is the main thing. And what that means for me personally, one thing that I really miss is just performing live. It's my calling. I feel it's everything that I do. Since I was little, they asked what I wanted to be when I was 5 years old. I said a comedian.
Right.
I always wanted to, and then just I love it. And emceeing the Northern Stars dance competition, it's great. It's a fun energy. It's a lot of fun just to be on stage. And my favorite thing to do in the world is play music on stage. So I just want to get back to doing that, and I want to basically play a giant show. Would be my next big goal, is to play a huge show with tons of people who are having fun and who are and we're just all riding a wave of freedom together.
Yes.
I think that would be a life changing experience that I want to really have.
Yes.
So that's where my head's at right now.
I love that. That is a great mission. Zach, you've played gigantic shows. We've talked about this on the podcast before. Give him something to manifest.
I don't feel like it's my right to manifest for him.
No, what I mean is,
don't even think about it, bud.
Don't tell me what to do, David.
All right. You know what I mean?
You manifest what you want to manifest. I'm gonna manifest over here,
away from you.
Get out of my
not in your presence right now.
Get out of my manifestation circle.
But what I mean more the experience. You've talked about it before. But I loved what Scott said about the energy you get from the crowd.
Yeah, it's pure elation. It's when you there's something that happens, because bad shows happen and good shows happen, and there's a difference between the two, and it isn't necessarily size that determines what that difference is.
It's crowd energy.
There is something that happens when the crowd connects with the band and the band connects back with the crowd, and you can't replace that, and you can't fake it, and you can't pretend, and it is only ever there in its organic form.
Right.
Live magic. It's magic. You can't bottle it up. You can't save some for later. It's being in the now. It's experiencing a live experience with a bunch of other people,
and you can't capture it on your phone. So put your phone away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It won't be the same.
No.
There's no point. You might as well live in the now. You're taking away from your own experience.
Yes.
The other day, I woke up at 4 a.m. and the moon was just beaming into my room. I'm like, that.
It was a full moon the other night.
Yeah. And I was like, that's one of the most beautiful sights I've seen, right? I was just like, it's so in awe. And I tried to take a picture of it, and it was horrible. And I'm like,
Also, never try to take a picture of the moon.
no.
It's terrible.
Right, yeah, nature. I know, like when you're like driving, there's like a nice landscape. You're like, oh my god, this is glorious.
Yeah,
You take a picture, and you're like, they'll never know. They'll never. I can't send this to like my brother and be like, look at this. He'd be like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like, no, you gotta be there live.
You gotta be
Yeah,
there.
and so if you haven't tried, just try being in the moment.
yeah.
You know?
Nice. Back to motivational speeches.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a theme here. There's a theme.
There's a theme.
You will never, and I mean, unless I guess there's certain there could be an argument made for like professional photographers, but like me with my iPhone, I'm not going to capture that sunset, right? And people think that you have to imprint this digital piece of data to remember the event, but on my honeymoon, I went out to the beach to watch the sunrise over the ocean, and I didn't take a photo because I wasn't there for the photo. I was there for the experience.
For the moment. Yes.
And that experience is going to be better than the photo. I never bothered taking the photo, but I know, you know?
Well, Scott, I love what you're doing with the band. I love who you are. I love your love for rock and roll. But most importantly, your perspective on life has really enriched my own. So thanks for coming on the podcast and being you.
Thanks, guys. That means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.